shot.
That was
No seams.
no seams. I drove, I went, beautiful, no seams, nowhere for it to come apart and.
They asked me, they said, what do you feel about us bringing in that one-shot paper for us? And I was like,
Please.
yes,
Every time.
yeah.
You like hugged him, didn't you?
Just crack the board, put the crown in it, have a nice day.
All right, so we'll get numbers for Gottschalk so that we have them to fill in,
Okay.
if nothing else, and then, we'll work on some numbers for all three segments of Faust.
All right.
Okay, all right, so that is roads. Steve gave us a update on his Ram 5500. So if you look at the equipment list, Steve does have on there for 2024, replacement of the backhoe. Talking to Steve, he thinks that he might be able to push that out a year. Steve, you wanna give him an update?
Yeah, I wanted to push that out of here just because I wanted to do our road project. I don't want it to cost so much money, and I felt that could be pushed out a little bit for the following year. So the only thing that just basically changed in my line item was major repairs. It went from 10,000 up to 20,000 just to cover the costs in case something should happen to that backhoe.
Okay.
So,
Just playing ahead.
yeah.
Steve, do you have an idea of when it is time to replace that and you would sell that backhoe, how much you might be able to sell it for?
Yeah, actually, Frank down at Little's just kind of did like a little walk around for us, and we could probably actually get close to 55,000, 60,000 for our backhoe.
Okay.
Yeah,
And-
that's just what he was just
Yeah.
saying.
Okay, and Tom was wondering, Tom, I think you had asked me this earlier, if we keep it in operation another year,
Mhm.
does that number go down substantially,
No,
or?
it shouldn't. I mean,
Okay,
no.
okay, all right.
It doesn't, it's not a piece that gets used every day hard like that. Like the excavator gets, we use that pretty hard. But the backhoe,
All right.
And I think, Steve, you were looking into, for the backhoe,
yeah.
some comparative purchasing a new one outright new versus a lease option in case that's something that we wanna consider.
See, the lease option is nice to have. If you have the money, in years we had the money, so we bought the equipment outright, but if you wanna give yourself a little bit of cushion, sometimes it's better off just to lease. You can do it in 2 years, 3 years, and then whatever type of payment plan, I guess you would come up with.
Now, would you, if you decide to go that way, would you do more than one piece of equipment then?
Probably, like the year, and say, this year I'm gonna get backhoe and excavator?
Yes.
Is that-
If you're gonna, if
Well,
you're gonna do the lease, because you're spreading your
my-
payments over 3 years, so you're better off coming in a little higher and spreading it over 3 years instead of locking yourself into not buying anything for 3 years.
True. But right now, I'm looking at trying to save the money.
Oh, I understand, I'm just saying that, I said when you get around to this, I mean, instead of just doing, I mean,
Well, when you
it
lease
could,
the item-
it could be your backhoe and your dump truck that you want. It doesn't have to, I mean, you don't have to get the lease payment from who you're buying it from, you
Oh,
can go to
yeah.
a bank to get the lease
Oh,
payment.
absolutely.
So
Yeah.
you can, you know, do 2 or 3 pieces and do your lease payment over 3 years or 4 years, whatever, you know, works out money-wise. So you're not having a lease payment, then you're putting out $150,000 next year because you want this other, we need this other piece.
Well,
So,
if we wanna go down that road and just start leasing our.
I'm not saying leasing it, I mean, you know, it's a buyout, there'll always be a buyout, it'll be 3 year, 4 year, you know, $1 buyout.
You can also roll them over and get another piece of equipment.
You
too.
could,
It's just like.
but then you're constantly paying, and I'm just saying, you know, it's an option to look at, instead of just the backhoe,
Mhm.
you know, what's next on your list, what, you know, and how would the payments work out, would it be easier on the funds if we did that, leased it out for 3 years, multiple pieces, instead of, you know, one lump sum every year?
That's a good point.
Yeah, and so, I mean, that's certainly something we
Sure
can
it is.
look into more next year, because, you know, if we push out the backhoe to 2025, then we're gonna be looking at
The loader.
possibly a loader.
Well, that's what I was looking at.
Right,
so.
exactly, and then looks like then a dump truck in 2026, so, I mean, so, you know, Steve's comfortable pushing out a major equipment investment a year, but at that point, I think it is worth looking at comparing purchase item options and lease options and see kind of what works best for us.
Yes.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah, so they
You
don't
know.
I've done it with Linda.
Linda might do that with me.
Done that with Linda.
Okay.
All right, let's see, Steve, anything else for
No, I mean-
equipment?
The only thing capital that we're purchasing is, tilt trailer.
Tilt trailer.
Yeah. And it was like 7680 that it came to.
No.
No. Yeah.
All right, so we can move on to admin / township campus. Steve, you wanna talk about, kind of what you're thinking as far as the, addition to the pole building out back?
Well, one of the bays would actually be a mechanics bay with a lift on it. We try to do as much in-house work, as you all know, mechanics wise, as we can. We wanna get booted out of this lower area, it doesn't fit our needs, and it's not really helping the ladies upstairs either with all the.
Run the equipment inside the building.
It's just not. So the add-on would be, the mechanics area, where he can have an area to keep all the filters and whatever he needs, and with a lift, that we can actually get a truck in there to do the work instead of putting the jacks underneath the stands and do the work that way. And then on the opposite side, he said it as a wash bay, it wasn't really a wash bay, it's more of, I want all the equipment having their own home. Trucks, everything should have their own home, and nothing should be out. So that area would be just an area to keep equipment as well.
Yeah, and we had talked about, you know, sort of doing that double bay there, and then maybe kind of a carport, three-sided covered area for any additional
Oh, a lean-to
item,
on the
yeah,
side.
lean-to.
Yeah.
And then the mechanic bay that we have here would just be additional equipment storage for them. So it gets in pretty close, I think we had figured, right? I mean, long-term, it would be ideal if they could do a drive-through on the other side of the salt shed, so that they could, you know, if they've got trailers or, you know, big vehicles, they could do
Do
a
it.
drive-through. But we understand that's kind of a
Yes.
long-term, but, you know, really, if we could get him that mechanic bay out of this building and additional storage, you know, because we've been investing in a lot of equipment, and we need to cover that equipment. So we've been, in fact, Steve rented a trailer last winter, and he'll probably do it again this winter,
A C-box.
yeah, just to keep all the mowers and everything in,
You
just so
put, get a 40-footer and then, put the roller in there, and then the mowers are in there.
Yeah.
Okay. I guess my question would be is what's the cost difference between, you know, doing a lean-to and actually having something enclosed? I mean,
So it's a combination of both.
okay.
So it's an enclosed two-bay garage, oversized, so that, like he said, he can have the bigger door and then be able to lift, the big vehicles up. And then off the end of that, I don't know if you guys have been out back, the asphalt kind of angles at the end. So the thought was, at that corner, wherever the two-bay garage ends, then that corner could just be the lean-to and have just additional storage for stuff that doesn't necessarily have to be in a building, but that he'd like to get undercover, was the thinking, right?
Okay. All right.
So we still need to get costs and everything on that, but we're working on that.
Okay.
And the idea, ideally, is, you know, any additional ARPA funds that we have after doing the schoolhouse, then we would apply those to that project, so.
Okay.
All right, All right. I think, Steve, did we have anything else for you? I think we're pretty good. So the other thing is the schoolhouse. I'm working on getting those cost estimates with the addition, without the addition. We did have the septic pumped yesterday, I think, over there. And Dale Barber took a look. We've got some roots in the tank, but it still works. When we redo the bathrooms, we're gonna wanna run a new pipe to the tank for sure. So, what else? So, looks like we have enough room back there. If we wanted to turn the addition, if we decide to do that, we should be able
So it's not
to work
sticking
that
out
in, so it's
before.
not sticking straight out. I'm hoping to have some cost estimates next week, so I had Chris Caglione, I think is his name, so he was recommended to me by the Lower Potts Grove Township, who's doing some renovations. They're using him sort of for construction management, helping them with the bidding process and that sort of thing. So he came out this week and took a look at the building, did a walkthrough. So he's working on getting us cost estimates for that project. And then I also have, as the next agenda item, a proposal from him to help us through the construction process, kind of as a consultant, and help us with the bidding process and that sort of thing. So I just wanted you guys to look at that. We can talk about it after budget, and, you know, if you wanna meet him or whatever, we can do that. But he seems very capable. Like I said, Lower Potts Grove highly recommended him. The manager called me and was like, you guys, I guess he heard we were doing stuff, and he's like, you guys should work with this guy, he's been really helpful. So anyway, so roughly, ballpark, we think it's probably gonna be $300,000 to $400,000 to redo the house over there. We do have the $100,000 LSA grant that's dedicated to that project, and then we have $380,000 of the ARPA/COVID funds. So we have the funds from those two sources to cover that project, and then hopefully we'll have some left over. So again, we'll kind of wait and see where those numbers fall out.
And we can still look for other grants to help.
We can, yeah, we could look for other grants. I'm not sure how much there is, but we could keep looking, sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, in our spare time.
Because, well, you know, the more we don't spend the ARPA there, it gives us
More elsewhere,
elsewhere.
fair.
So, you know, if we're able to offset some of the costs with another grant, you know.
Mhm. Yes. All right, trying to think what else. Is there any questions about that at this point? All right, so we'll just kind of wait till we get those cost estimates and then go from there, okay?
Okay.
So I think those were the, kind of the big three capital items that we had hoped to talk to you guys about tonight. Road projects, I think we got some good direction from you on that. Talked about the pole building and the renovation to the schoolhouse. Any other questions or comments on general fund?
Steve, that pole building, you say it's too big,
Too bad.
and that's gonna house everything? With
Yeah, it's
everything
gonna
else?
help out.
Help out?
Yeah, it's gonna help out. The mechanic bay alone is gonna help out tremendously.
I got a recommendation for a lift.
Huh? Good.
Well, all three wouldn't be
We
better.
put an in-ground two-post,
Yeah.
those all are 550s and everything.
Oh, really?
The 15 ton,
Yeah.
no, 15,000 pounds. In-ground.
Holy hell.
I'll get you the price.
Okay.
I love it, absolutely love it.
Yeah. Cause those got cost on Mohawk lift. And then, of course, you gotta get the cost, you gotta put at least 8 inches of concrete, you know.
Now, you don't have to with this because it's an in-ground.
I'm saying with the Mohawk one.
Yeah, I'm saying with this one, actually, 80% of it's backfilled with pea gravel.
Really?
Yep.
Yeah, I like the,
It's all self-contained. All you gotta do is run the hydraulic lines over to a wall to a pump. It's really nice. I can send you pictures, it's, I mean,
550s up, that's great.
yeah, with the 550 up, it no problem.
Yeah, perfect. I'll take that.
Cost.
And
Can you look
it
into
keeps the
three
post out of the way.
cost for three?
And then if you got a communication
Let's
with
read
somebody that I can call, just to talk to them.
Yep.
That'd be great. Awesome. Thank you.
Okay, I wanna move on to water?
Honestly,
No? Not honestly.
no, water's not bad.
What's that?
Water's not bad.
Huh. All right. So, with water, as far as our budget for next year goes, trying to see here if there's anything significant. So we do have, under capital purchases, line 448.70, we have there $120,000. And that includes a lot of the, I think, study, the engineering fees and that sort of thing for SSM to start the water project, okay? We also have to think about a new filter for the third phase of, actually, scratch that, that's sewer.
Sure.
Never mind. Let's just focus on water, get a little ahead of myself. I guess that's really kind of the big thing with water at this point, is just starting that water project. I had emailed you guys, I plan on meeting with the HOA on Tuesday, so we'll get into possible rate changes here in a minute. But generally speaking, for the budget for 2024, we are showing a negative $65,000 at this point, but that's because of the $100,000 we budgeted in there for the study. So, as far as our reserve funds, for our fund balance, if we go back to the beginning, to the back of my memo, there was, I did include in here the cash balance report that was in your packet from last month. So Linda updates them each year, so maybe Linda, you wanna just kinda talk over
Each month.
fund balances? Yeah, each month, sorry. Thank you.
If you take a look at, just, since we're talking about water, we have total funds in the water fund of $825,000 to date. There's $581,000 just in operating, and then we had some capital reserve. I don't remember why you guys had put money aside, if anybody even knows the reason that money was put aside years ago in a capital reserve. But you can change that at any point in time if you need to. So we could use that money if you needed to use that money for this project. That could be reassigned and used for that purpose.
Okay.
So there is $825,000 in there. We had talked about maybe taking some of that money and possibly investing it. Some of the interest rates are really good right now. One of the CDs was at 5.75%. So that's a possibility. You just want to make sure that there's, that we have enough operating cash in there. So we'll be bringing a recommendation to you about that, I guess it's good to.
Yeah, so what we're leaning toward in our Victory Water Fund account, money market account, we have $308,000 roughly in there. Linda feels comfortable that we could invest about half of that, about $150,000 in a CD for 1 year. And like she said, I mean, it sounds like interest rates are at 5.75%. So that's pretty good. Because the thinking is, even if, best case scenario, we won't be moving forward with construction costs of this water upgrade for at least a year.
Yeah.
By the time we do the design. So we might as well put what we can in investments and let the water fund make some additional money for a year.
Mhm.
Since, we're looking at taking on a fairly big project. Right? Okay, so, going back to the water fund. So you have fund balance available to cover a shortfall next year in 2024 if we need to for that design work. Now, if we move forward with the Penvest loan, we can, even though we'll be spending that money for design, we can get reimbursed for that from the loan that we would be to take out. So that's an option as well. I think I had mentioned to one or two of you, we met with Spot Stevens and McCoy last Friday to kind of start talking about the project. And I mentioned to them that we had discussed applying for that LSA grant, that local share account grant, at your last meeting, and had talked about applying for 300,000 of the 1.5 million. And they've prepared several grant applications and with that funding source. And they recommended that we request the maximum amount of $1 million. So they said, worst case scenario, if the state likes your project and they don't have $1 million for you, they'll call you up and they'll ask if you'll take less, which obviously we'd say yes, certainly. So if everyone's okay, we'll go ahead and move forward and we'll ask for $1 million. I think the fact that it's a combination of upgrading, the water tank and the water line, in addition to improving safety through the fire hydrants, I think it's gonna be a very appealing project. But I think we're gonna have to, contact state representatives and make sure that, they're fighting for us at the state to get some of that funding for this project. So that could be an amazing assistance on that project, since the project's 1.5 million. So,
Well, it's 1.5 million right now.
correct. Well, it's 1.4 right now.
Yes.
Yeah. So, going back to what Linda was just mentioning, with our fund balances, we also have, $400,000 to $500,000 not dedicated to anything at this point, that also can help out along the way. At this point though, because the rates are so good with Penvest, we still wanna pursue those funds, because if we're making, 5% on our fund balance and we only have to pay 1.5% to 2.5% on the loan, we can make interest to help offset the cost of the loan. So, we're moving in the right direction with all of that. So, yeah,